Get ready for the full detailed analysis of Aaron Rodgers. He's a 4-time MVP, but it wasn't always easy. He's had no Division I offers out of high school. How did he go from a community college to an NFL legend? We'll also look at Rodgers' strange, off-the-field situations. He just missed minicamp for the Jets for a trip to Egypt. The media paints him out to be a selfish diva. This is a deep dive into the story of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers grew up in Chico, California. Aaron wasn't exactly your typical best athlete growing up, like you see with many NFL players. He was just 5'3" as a freshman at Pleasant Valley High School. Rodgers wouldn't even start until his junior year. In 2 seasons, Aaron Rodgers would just have 4,421 passing yards and set single-game records, like throwing for 6 touchdowns in a game. Despite some good numbers, no Division I school wanted Aaron Rodgers. He was just too small, standing at 5'10" tall and 165 pounds. Aaron Rodgers and his high school coach would go to camps and attempt to get him recruited. Rodgers even sent Purdue his tape, and someone on their coaching staff said, "Good luck with your attempt at a college football career." Rodgers still keeps that written letter as motivation. Illinois did offer him a walk-on backup quarterback spot. Rodgers rejected that offer and wanted to start. Aaron was stuck and considered even quitting sports altogether. He was going to focus on his studies and go to law school. Not until Butte College would offer him a spot. This was a junior college 15 miles away from his hometown. After Butte head coach convinced him to join, Rodgers was all in. As a freshman, Aaron Rodgers would throw for 2,408 yards with 26 touchdowns. All of that while leading his team to a 10-1 record. In one of the games Rodgers played, head coach Jeff Tedford came to watch one of his teammates play. While watching, he was so amazed and offered Aaron a scholarship to play at the University of California. Aaron Rodgers would transfer from community college to a D1 program. Marshawn Lynch was on Aaron Rodgers' team, and in a spring game, Rodgers took the blame for Lynch. Aaron went to hand the ball off to Marshawn, and he went the wrong way. Aaron saw this and handed the ball off smoothly backwards, and Lynch got it for a 1-yard touchdown. The running back coach was upset with Lynch. Aaron came in and said, "That one was on me." He took the blame for his teammate, and they gained an incredible relationship with each other. This really showed Rodgers' leadership skills. Going into the season, Rodgers wouldn't start at first. He would finally start 4 games into his sophomore campaign. Aaron would lead his team to a 7-3 record in the games he started. Aaron Rodgers had set a school record of just 1.43% of his passing being intercepted. He also had an impressive 5 300-yard games. As a sophomore, Rodgers would throw for 2,903 yards and 19 touchdowns. After that season, Aaron Rodgers' college professor had some words for him. It was his food appreciation class, and about 15 of the 120 kids from the class were on the football team. He wrote a paper and said he cited it incorrectly. 14 other kids also cited incorrectly and had a chance to rewrite the paper. Aaron couldn't rewrite it. Rodgers would go to her office and ask why he couldn't rewrite, because the other kids got a chance to. Well, we'll let Aaron Rodgers finish the rest of the story.
Titled athlete, you expect things to be given to you. What are you going to do with your life? I said, "I'm going to play in the NFL." She said, "No way in hell.
No way in hell.
You won't make it. You'll get hurt. You'll never make it.
Whoa.
You will need your education, and you will never make it. And what I've seen from you is you won't amount to anything."
Oh, my God.
And I said, "Watch me."
I guess Aaron Rodgers proved her wrong, and more importantly, himself right. That would fuel Rodgers for his junior year campaign. He would throw for 2,566 yards and 24 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions, while leading them to a 10-1 record. Aaron Rodgers would forego his senior year of college and enter the 2005 NFL Draft. The San Francisco 49ers had the first overall pick in this draft. Rodgers grew up in California and played his entire football career there. He also was a 49ers fan, and it was a dream spot for him.
With the 49ers, that there was no way that they wouldn't pick me. It was going to be a perfect fit. Me and San Francisco, my childhood team, and I was going to be wearing the red and gold.
The Niners and most of the NFL had determined that Alex Smith was the much safer pick, so the 49ers would select Alex Smith with the #1 overall pick. The Miami Dolphins had the 2nd pick and needed a quarterback, but new head coach Nick Saban only liked Alex Smith, and he was taken, so he went with running back Ronnie Brown. After every pick, the camera would go to Aaron Rodgers, who just looked frustrated. After 23 picks, and a few hours later, the Green Bay Packers would select Aaron Rodgers with the 24th overall pick. This was a great spot for Rodgers to land, going to a historical great franchise, but Brett Favre was still their quarterback, and Rodgers would have to wait his turn. In his rookie season, the Packers would go 4-12. They would fire their head coach and bring in Mike McCarthy, who was the offensive coordinator for the Niners. Ironically, the same Niners who drafted Alex Smith over Rodgers. Mike and Rodgers would work hard together to improve his throwing mechanics. Meanwhile, Brett Favre would say things like, "I don't have to get Aaron ready to play," indicating that it's not his job to mentor Rodgers. After 2 seasons, Aaron thought it was finally time to start. Brett Favre announced his retirement, but then he came back out of retirement retirement, though he watched the 2007 season from the bench once again. But in 2008, Favre would retire and unretire again, causing Packers fans to be split. Some wanted Favre back and some wanted Aaron Rodgers to start. Ultimately, Favre was traded to the New York Jets. In Aaron Rodgers' first season starting, he would throw for 4,038 yards and 28 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. They would finish the season 6-10. The Packers gave Aaron a 5-year extension worth $65 million. This would make him the 4th highest paid quarterback at the time. In 2009, Aaron finally arrived and was the solidified superstar. He threw for 4,434 yards and 30 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions. He led his team to an 11-5 record. This gave them a wild card playoff against the Arizona Cardinals. Aaron would throw an interception on the first play of the game, but he would be lights out after that. He would throw for 423 yards and 4 touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. Despite this amazing game, the Packers would lose in overtime 51-45. This season did give him his first Pro Bowl appearance. In the following 2010 season, Aaron and the Packers would just sneak into the playoffs at 10-6 as a 6th seed. They would beat the Eagles in the wildcard game 21-6. Somehow, in the next game versus the number 1 seeded Falcons, the Packers blew them out 48-21. In that game, Aaron Rodgers would complete 31 of 36 passes for 366 yards and 4 total touchdowns. In the conference championship game, the Packers had to play their rivals, the number 2 seeded Chicago Bears. In a game where Aaron Rodgers would struggle, they leaned on the run game and defense to win 21-14. The Green Bay Packers were headed to the Super Bowl to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Packers jumped to a 14-0 start. The Steelers tried coming back and fell short. The Packers would win 31-25, and Aaron Rodgers was named Super Bowl MVP. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense would take their game to the next level in 2011. They would finish as the number 1 offense in the NFL, scoring an insane 35 points per game. Aaron Rodgers would have an all-time great season, throwing for 4,643 yards and 45 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions. The Packers were 15-1 and the number 1 team in the NFC. All things were looking up for them to go back to the Super Bowl. He was even named MVP of the league, but their defense had suffered some injuries compared to last season. They went from being ranked 2nd to 19th overall. That was the problem with this team. In an upset, the Giants would beat the Packers 37-20. Of course, it had to be Eli Manning, who is just a road warrior. The same Giants team would win the Super Bowl that season. In the following 2012 season, Rodgers would have another stellar season, and the Packers were in the playoffs. In the wildcard game versus division rival Minnesota Vikings, the team had the MVP, Adrian Peterson. A-Rod and the Packers took care of them easily, winning 24-10. They would then play the Niners in the divisional round and lose 45-31. After that season, Aaron Rodgers signed a 4-year extension worth $110 million, making him the highest paid player in the NFL. In the following 2013 season, he fractured his collarbone and missed 8 games. He would return to play in Chicago and needed to win to make the playoffs. On a 4th and 8, down 1 point with just 46 seconds left in the game, Aaron Rodgers would float it up for a 48-yard bomb to Randall Cobb to win the game. It was now time to play versus the 49ers in the wildcard game. Unfortunately, A-Rod would have another heartbreaking loss to the Niners, losing to a last-second field goal 23-20. Starting the 2014 season, the Packers would get blown out by the Seahawks 36-16. Yeah, it was a rough start to the season, but they would find a way to finish 12-4 despite the horrible start. The A-Rod-led Packers would have the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers would throw for 4,381 yards with 38 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. This would give him his 2nd career MVP. The Packers would play the Cowboys in the divisional round. This game would be infamously known as the Dez Caught It. The refs argued he didn't maintain possession of the football, but everyone was shocked it wasn't a catch. Green Bay would hold on and win 26-21. Then, in the NFC Championship game, they would play the reigning Super Bowl champion Seahawks. The Packers led this game 19-7 with just 2 minutes left. Then, Seattle would kick an onside kick and actually recover it. They would go for 2 and make a 3-point lead, but they left it over a minute for Rodgers, and Rodgers would lead the pack for a field goal. Unfortunately, in overtime, Rodgers would never see the ball and lose the game 28-22. In the 2015 season, the Packers would start 6-0. Despite the hot start, they would only finish 10-6. Aaron Rodgers did make some iconic moments that year. In Week 13 versus the Detroit Lions, with zeros on the clock, after a face mask penalty, Aaron Rodgers was on his own 39-yard line and had to throw it 60-plus yards to the end zone. It was somehow caught by Richard Rodgers. Fast forward to the playoffs, they had to go to Washington to play the Redskins. They would blow them out 35-18. Then A-Rod and his troops went to Arizona for the divisional round. With just 55 seconds left in the game, on 4th and 20, he would roll out left and launch a 60-yard bomb. A couple plays later, Aaron had to launch yet another another Hail Mary. He would roll out left with pressure in his face and launch the ball to the end zone. Somehow, it was caught for a touchdown and the game would go to overtime. Unfortunately, like it usually happens for Rodgers, he would lose the coin toss and never see the field again. The Cardinals would win 26-20. In the following 2016 season, Rodgers and his team would struggle, starting the year 4-6. Then, Aaron Rodgers would say this:
We can run the table. I really do. I think.
After that, A-Rod and the Packers proceeded to win 6 straight games to finish 10-6. They would play the Giants in the wildcard game. Guess what? With no time remaining at the end of the first half, Aaron Rodgers would throw a 42-yard Hail Mary to Randall Cobb for a touchdown. They would win this game easily 38-13. Then he had to go play the number 1 seed Dallas Cowboys. The game would be tied at 31 and 12 seconds remaining. Aaron Rodgers would take the snap and roll out left. He found Jared Cook on the sideline for a toe drag catch for a 36-yard completion. Then Mason Crosby would kick a 51-yard field goal to win the game. Then it was time to play the MVP, Matt Ryan and the Falcons in the NFC Championship game. This game would never be close. The Falcons won 44-21. The 2017 season wouldn't go as planned. Aaron would break his collarbone in week 6 and the Packers would miss the playoffs. The following 2018 season, Rodgers would have an insane touchdown to interception ratio. He would throw for 25 passing touchdowns and only 2 interceptions, but they would miss the playoffs going 6-9-1. Following that season, they would fire their Super Bowl winning head coach, Mike McCarthy. They would hire young Matt LaFleur to be the next head coach. In training camp, new head coach Matt LaFleur decided to do a joint practice with the Houston Texans. When Aaron Rodgers was asked about the joint practice, he said he would be just fine if it were the last joint practice. Then his head coach said he would love to do more joint practices, but that coaching change would benefit the Packers. They would go 13-3 in the 2019 season. After a first-round bye, they would beat the Seattle Seahawks 28-23 in the divisional round. Unfortunately, they would lose to the 49ers 37-20 in the NFC Championship game. After that season, the Packers front office was looking towards the future. They would draft Jordan Love in the first round. Instead of getting Rodgers some help to win now, they focused on replacing him. In the Aaron Rodgers era, the Packers had never drafted a wide receiver in the first round. Aaron Rodgers would say, "I hope to be a Packer forever, but that may not be reality anymore."
Aaron Rodgers is no longer Aaron Rodgers. He's in decline. 3 straight years, the stats have fallen. QBR falling, completion percentage falling. QBR last year was 54, which was the worst of his.
With all the doubters, Aaron Rodgers had some fuel to go be great. Aaron Rodgers would throw for 4,299 yards, 48 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. Aaron Rodgers had an insane 70% completion percentage to go with that. Aaron Rodgers would win his 3rd MVP. You can argue that this was his best season of his career, but once again, finished 13-3. They beat the Rams 32-18 in the divisional round, but then he ran into the red-hot Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by the one and only Tom Brady. Tom Brady combined with that lethal defense would help beat the Packers 31-26, but this wasn't it. The Packers had a 4th and goal, down 8 points, with 2 minutes left in the game. The head coach decided to kick a field goal instead of letting Rodgers try and win it. After the game, Aaron was asked about his future with the team. A-Rod said, "Lots of guys' futures are uncertain, myself included." This marked Aaron's 4th consecutive NFC Championship loss. There was some feud between the Packers front office and Aaron. Rodgers didn't show up to the first day voluntary OTAs. Instead, he did an interview. To start the 2021 regular season, they would start off the year getting completely embarrassed, losing to the Saints 38-3. Despite the poor start, Aaron Rodgers would still lead the pack to another 13-3 season. He would throw for 4,115, 37 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions. This would give him his 4th MVP and win it back-to-back years. They would play the Niners in the divisional round. It was a cold, windy game that eventually snow started to come down. It was also a low-scoring game. In the final seconds, the Niners would make a 45-yard field goal to win the game. Another year, another heartbreaking playoff loss. In the 2022 offseason, tragedy would strike for Aaron Rodgers. His elite wide receiver, Devontae Adams, would sign with the Las Vegas Raiders. In return, the Packers would struggle in 2022. They would miss the playoffs, and Aaron Rodgers' stats were down. The following 2023 offseason would be filled with rumors about Aaron's future with the Packers. There were reports coming out saying the Packers front office would prefer to move on from Rodgers. Then Aaron Rodgers would go on a weird darkness retreat. It would last 4 days and 4 nights of complete darkness. Basically, he's alone in a room and will be provided food by the people running the retreat. He says he'll be ready to make a decision after this. A few months later, Aaron Rodgers would be traded to the New York Jets for draft picks. With the addition of Aaron Rodgers to a pretty good Jets team, this gave them the 7th highest odds to win the Super Bowl. They had the pieces on the defense and a pretty good receiving core. Aaron Rodgers was their missing piece. It was a Monday Night Football game on September 11th, 2023. Aaron Rodgers came out with the flag. But on the Jets' 4th offensive snap of the season, tragedy struck. On a routine sack, Aaron Rodgers would go down in pain, holding his lower leg. He would be later carted off the field with a torn Achilles. 2 days later, Aaron would announce he had successful surgery done. To make things more interesting, ahead of their matchup versus the Eagles, Aaron Rodgers was seen throwing passes. This is just insane, considering he had torn his Achilles weeks prior. He was even hinting at a return sometime that same season. They would even open his practice window and he would practice immediately with the team. But the team would be out of playoff contention and he felt no need to rush back then. Going into the 2024 season, Rodgers missed mandatory minicamp to go on vacation. According to Rodgers, this trip to Egypt was very important. He was even fined $101,716 for it. This is why the Packers wanted out of Rodgers. Despite his elite play, these days the media seems to hate Aaron Rodgers. Is it warranted? What do you guys think? Will the Jets and Aaron Rodgers bounce back this season? How far will they go? For more of the best football content on YouTube, subscribe now. See you next time.